Yeah, I'm recording now.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
All right. All of the integration will be set up from this little cogwheel at the project level. So the settings up here will always be at the Qtest instance level, while the settings down here will be at your project level. That means that you can choose to integrate certain projects with Jira, while others you can leave as standalone, or if you're using some other project planning tool, you can have that flexibility. Once you go into integration settings, you'll find all of the built-in integrations in Qtest. In this case, we want to select Jira.
Andrew, sorry, one question. So since we are showing, do you have anything sandbox or Jira, anything we can show on this session you are showing, right?
You're saying if I have my own
yes,
Jira project?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll be showing you with my Jira project.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So once we're here, we can go and add a new Jira connection. When you add a new Jira connection, it will appear down here. You can give it the name that you'd like. In my case, I called it Andres Qtest plus Jira. And the setup is this simple. You give it a name, we'll point it to the URL, in this case, your Jira server on premise. And we'll have to give it an API token. Now, there's a little guide on how to get an API token if you're not sure. It is very easy to create an API token in Jira, but you can follow these instructions on how to get it. Once we have that token, we'll be able to pass it here, and that'll be that.
But one question, Andrews, but since we don't have the server level access for Jira, but we do have the Jira project level admin access. So in that case, we need to provide the URL, the Jira project URL there.
No, Viraya, I think you got to get the password token from Jira level, not on the project level.
Yeah, you'll have to get it from the Jira level. Are you guys working right now with a you said a dev version of the Jira project? Is it like your own instance where you test and do all kinds of stuff?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have access? Do you have any administration rights over that Jira instance?
Only for the project level.
Got it. In that case, you might have to submit a request to create an API token in order to get it.
Yeah, I think even the username, I think you should not be using your personal username. It's supposed to be a service account service account, I believe.
Normally, this is where you get it and create them. You go to manage. Let me go in here. I'll have to look for my password later. But if you follow that link, basically right here, you'll get the little interface to be able to create API tokens in there. It's very, very straightforward. If you don't have access rights to this, you might have to submit a request to somebody that does have requests to create that token for you.
So this will both for cloud or only on-premise? Both it should work?
They should work for both. I'll double check, but I believe it works for both ways this way. Yeah.
But in the Qtest that
it shows cloud only.
Only cloud only, yeah. See the below.
Yeah, instructions to
I
create
see
the
what you're
input
saying.
of cloud.
So yeah, in this case, you might have to use your credentials for your Jira server. And I'll send the specific information for Jira server. But yeah, in this case, you might have to pass the web URL and the password that you're using with your credentials.
And what is the other option below? Use Jira Auth. There is one more link, Andrews.
We used to be able to support Jira OAuth. I believe we don't support it anymore. Right now, we're doing it either with the password or token and passing the server URL or a web URL for Jira server. Essentially, these are the 4 fields that you have to provide. You give it a name and you provide these 4 fields. So your
So
server URL.
what is the web URL for Jira servers?
To be honest with you, I'm not exactly too sure. It's something that I can double check. It's on our documentation as well. We have it pretty extensively documented. And I do excuse myself, I don't work with Jira Server too much. Most of our integrations is with Jira and Cloud. But we have a lot of customers that are using Jira Server at the moment with no problem, and the integration does work the same. It's more what we need to pass to integrate the projects is maybe a little bit different. All right, but once we're able to gather this information, and I'll send over the guide that walks through this stuff a little bit more. The integration is set up in itself. We can go to edit a little bit further. And then here's where we decide how we're bringing in those objects from Jira. So there are 3 main areas. We're bringing in our defects, or requirements, and or releases. Right now, I've chosen to only bring 1 issue type for stories. But again, we can add more issue types if you'd like. It's as simple as add a requirement type. We will pick the Jira project where we want to bring it from. So in this case, I would use my own project. And in here, you'll see the list of all the issue types that we can bring in. So you can choose to bring in your epics as requirements, your tasks as requirements, etc. It's basically associating those issue types with the requirement type in Qtest. Of course, we've associated all of our bugs with defect tabs in here. And I'm also bringing in my my releases, my fixed versions as releases into Qtest. One thing to note is you can decide how you want to organize these user stories. So if I go into my Jira project, I can see that I've already created some epics and some releases. So I can go into Qtest and decide how I want to bring those in. If I go into the requirement settings, I can choose to retrieve all data types from this issue or filter it by some logic. And I can also choose how I want to organize it. For example, if I want Qtest to create a folder hierarchy based on the fixed versions of releases that I created in Jira, and then maybe an additional subfolder of maybe epics or sprints, I can choose to bring it in like that. Now, this can be changed later on. If you decide that you want to redo your hierarchy, maybe you want to organize by epic instead of by release, you can always come in here and change it. We can also choose what specific fields we're bringing in. So these are all the Jira fields that I'm bringing into Qtest. We can also see custom fields, etc. If there's one field that maybe doesn't make sense to bring in, we can always choose not to do so. And once we're done here, I can see that I'm organizing by releases. So when I go into my requirements themselves, I'm going to save them here and see my imported from Jira folder, which once you set up your integration, you'll always see this imported from Jira folder. And in here, I can see that Qtest has brought in everything by release. If I had selected another tier, for example, sprint, if I open any of these modules, I'll see my release, then my sprint, and then those requirements that are categorized to that sprint. So Qtest is really doing all the heavy lifting. You've already done all of your planning and organization in Jira, and you're just telling Qtest, hey, this is how I want you to bring in, and this is how I want you to organize it based on how you have set it up in Jira. And again, you can always come back to your integration settings, to Jira, and edit any of these settings as needed. Making sense so far?
Yes, Andrew.
That being said, after you've set this up, that is it. There's no more to it. At this point, Qtest and Jira are in communication via webhook. Any new story that I add in Jira will automatically appear in Qtest. Any changes that I make to that user story in Qtest will automatically be reflected back into Jira. And it's basically set and forget, right? We set it up once. You can always come back and access it here, but then that is it. And we do have to do it per project. So if I wanted to choose a different project, for example, I would have to remake that integration there. But as you can see, I have some projects that are integrated with Jira. I have some others that are integrated with Rally or Vera. Those are all of the built-in out-of-the-box integrations that we have. As well as I have some other projects that are not integrated with anything. They're just using the test planning and defect tracking solutions inside of Qtest and so on. So again, very flexible, very easy to set up.
Okay, Andrew, one question. Can you go back to the requirement where you imported from the Jira, or not here in the not settings, and go to your requirements? Okay. Okay, so can you open any one of the requirement? So for that requirement, and what are the test cases you created? How we can see the here?
Sure. Let me go to one that has a little bit more test cases. Let me go to this one.
Yeah.
If I scroll to the bottom, over here in the linked test cases tab, you're gonna see all the test cases that I've linked to this project.
Okay, good. And also, can you to go back to Jira, and can you show me that this user story, are those test cases showing or not in the Jira?
Sure. So if I go into Jira, scroll down, I can see the defects I logged. These are the specific test IDs. And if I come to the bottom, these are those same tests.
These are the test cases. Okay, good. Go back to again Qtest. Okay, so here we can see the requirement and the associated link to test cases also here. And also we can see the here any execution result here in the requirement level.
Yeah, so inside of Qtest, you wouldn't see it here. But if I click on any of my test cases listed, enter default data, it brings me to the test design. Here I can actually see the test details and what it does. And if I wanted to see that execution, I can always go to the test execution itself. And this is where all that data is going to be. So enter default data, this is where all I have. And of course, if I go into Jira, I get that summary only of the test cases that I've linked and their executions. I can see the pass-fail ratio up here.
Okay, in Jira, but in the Qtest, can you go back to one second? So only in the test design, in the test case level, you don't see the execution. You have to see that you have to come to the test execution where you can see the result. And also,
the test execution is just what holds the results, but the linkage is still there. If I go to the execution of this one, I can see that if I scroll to the bottom, I can see that requirement that this was a part of. So from that execution, I can always find the linkage back to that specific requirement where we were.
Okay, got it. So now you are in the test design, you are in the test design tab. So where I can see the particular test cases, what are the linked defects in the test design tab?
Sure. So design is not going to hold defect information. Test design is only going to hold what the test is, right? Who is it assigned to? Is it automated? Is it shared? What version is it on? The steps, etc. All of that defect tracking will be over in test executions. So this is where we are actually executing our tests. Again, we can go to defects. I can see those defects that have been linked. These defects over here are the same defects that, let me go back to my Jira, are these same defects over here. Of course, I've already closed out a few, so they're all of them are there, but you can see them reflected. If I go to the execution history, these are all of the times that I've run this specific test. I can see at glance, hey, did this run find the defect? And more importantly, I can click on a specific run, for example, this one over here, And if I scroll to the bottom, we actually see the steps for that run. So we see that for that one specifically, we only got to the second step. In that second step, we found that defect. Of course, we can always click on the defect. We'll see the ID. And if we click on the ID, we'll be brought back into Jira, where that specific issue is stored.
Okay, got it. So that automatically the issue is going to create in the Jira, correct?
Yes, so because this project is integrated with Jira, if I were to log a new defect and click here, for example, QTest is going to ask me, hey, what Jira project is it associated with? This is the one that I've integrated with, and what defect type. In this case, I'm going to give it a bug. And when I click add, QTest is going to bring me into Jira. So I'm always logging the defects in Jira, but as soon as I log it into Jira, the defect is also reflected back in QTest. So to give you, let me do an example. I'm just going to name this example. I'm going to do create. Defect is logged. Close this out of here. And now we see the defect is now linked to QTest as well. If I close out of here, now I see I have two defects linked to this specific step. I can always go back and see those defects, trace it back into Jira. And as you can see, it's all real time, right? There was no lag between me creating a defect and being able to see it reflected on both sides.
Okay, got it. And one more, can you go to QTest? QTest?
Sure thing.
Okay, so in the test execution, can you take any one of the test cases and can you just manual test cases, just 1 or 2 steps? Can you run it? Can you manual test just to open, try to run it once?
Sure. You want to see how like an execution would look like?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, let me, I can just go over here and I'm going to select run.
Mm-hmm.
This will bring up the test pad. So I have all my steps in here. The first step is go to this specific link over here. Let me just set it up so we can see it a little bit better. So I go to the link. They ask me to start filling out this form. So the first one is, choose an Audi. The first one is choose Corolla. And here maybe I notice, hey,
Okay, I got it. Okay, so now in this window, so that you have the test step description and expert result, that is a standard, and also actual result. That's what I'm looking. This actual result column is are not there, and also
exactly. So
in the runtime, is there any capable to capture the screenshot? How to capture the screenshot?
Yeah, absolutely. As you're capturing screenshots or as you're gathering evidence, you can always go to the attachments. You can upload a screenshot. You can take it from here. You can drag and drop it and add that evidence at a step level as well.
Okay.
And like you said, you can put your actual result. You can also log a defect as you're doing your run at the step level. Or if you want to fail the entire test, you can also submit a defect at the entire test case level rather than an individual step. And then we can mark the entire test as passed or failed or incomplete. If maybe all of my steps passed, I can always go here, select passed, mark all steps, which were mark them all. If one of them maybe failed, I can always go back, change that, log the defect, maybe mark the entire step as failed, etc. So we make it very easy and streamlined to be able to log in every step, log in your evidence at every step. And this is also the manual way that we do it. We do have ways to capture evidence with QTest that I don't think I've had a chance to show you that might be worth it to show you right now. One of the best ways for us to capture evidence is using some of the plugins that QTest comes with. In this case, we have QTest Explorer. And Explorer comes in 2 flavors, Web Explorer or Desktop Explorer. Let me show you what Web Explorer looks like to give you an idea. So Web Explorer will sit in your browser as a plugin. To activate it is really easy. I point it to the project that I'm working on. I can give my session a title. So let's say new exploratory session. And I find that a lot of manual testers really like this feature as it makes their lives a lot easier. Let's say I want maybe let's say 3-minute session. We're gonna do a fast one. We can go ahead and start the session. And once we started, we can see that QTest Explorer is now recording the actions that we make in the browser. So I can continue filling out my my form, maybe select the date here, we'll select the number of seats, etc. Let's try and say 30,000, maybe 15,000 miles. Boom, no problem. Let's say that we did find, hey, we're missing a field. With Explorer, we can take a screenshot of the visible part of the screen, the entire screen. We can add a memo. We can add a recorded video, or I could simply add a note. I could say, hey, I found a defect. I'm missing a field. I'll go ahead and add the note. And let's say that that was what I wanted to do for the session. I can go ahead and finish it. The session is being uploaded. And now we're being guided into QTest Explorer, where our session is being saved. And in here, we can see that we've captured all of that evidence of all of the actions that I took. Usually, once we capture the evidence, we might want to come in here and clean it up a little bit. So we could say, hey, this one was the first action, this one was the second action, this one was the third action. We can give a name to those actions. We can, of course, edit those names as needed. If we go down here, maybe we can see that note that I left in here. Hey, there's a bug, we're missing a field. So then as a tester, maybe I can go in and point where the missing field should be. I can add a call out, for example. I can point this call out to say missing field. Look it there. We can also, if there's sensitive information, we can blur it out, for example, so you're not, sending it out the wrong place. We can crop, all kinds of stuff to edit. And once we're done collecting our evidence, we can either submit a defect directly from Explorer. We can submit a test case, which I think is really cool because it will take each of the steps that we did and convert it into a test step on this test case. So the most successful customers with this will record their exploratory sessions, we'll clean them up to make sure that, hey, these are the actual steps that I took, everything looks good. And then you can go ahead and submit it as a test case, cutting down quite a bit of time with you or quite a bit of time to work. It even has some pretty nifty features like generating a test script. So it will convert this session into a Selenium script, for example, that you could use to recreate the same process that you just went through. Of course, the script might be a little limited because it'll be using the hard values that we use. So in order to make it a fully automated test, it might need a little bit of work, but it does get you 60 to 80% of the way there. Again, cutting down some work in creating open source automations. And yeah, once we're done, we can save the session. We can close out of here. You can see all the sessions that I've done in the past. And any of these sessions can also be linked to requirements in QTest. So if I go back to QTest, and I go to my requirements, I can see that I actually have one of those sessions linked to it as a test case that I've made myself. If I go in
that recording, that session you recorded as a test case creation, right? It's not test case execution.
So you can use it to create tests, but you can use it in execution too. And I'll show you that in a second.
Because that's what you recorded as a part of execution. That's the reason I would like to see that recorded session in the execution evidences in the test case execution level.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you how we can do that as well. So in here, this is what I was talking about. All of those steps that I recorded in the session have been converted into actual steps. And even screenshots have been uploaded per step. So I can always go in and look at the screenshot that we use for that specific step. Each one will show, hey, this is the specific step that I would like you to do. So for example, in here, it's pointing to click on the automobile link. In the step, click automobile link. So from that session, we're able to create pretty comprehensive test cases. Now, from the test execution tab, I've just shown you how to run them with a test pad, but we can run it with test pad and Explorer, desktop or web explorer. So technically, when we launch test pad and web explorer, your tester will have the test pad on one side, will be able to go through the process of filling out the application. And as they're filling out the application, Explorer will be recording every one of their steps. And once the session is done, if we scroll to the bottom, all that evidence that we capture with Explorer would also be saved in the execution history.
So to run that session during the execution, so you need to click on the run and select the test pad plus web option. Which option, Andrews? Can you please repeat again?
It's really up to you. If you want to do a quick run and you think that you only need the test pad, we have customers that do it that way. If you want to do the test pad, but you want to automatically capture the evidence and the steps that you're going, you can run it with Web Explorer or Desktop Explorer so that you're automatically capturing that evidence. Explorer is just an additional plugin. It is really up to you if you want to leverage it, but we find that a lot of manual testers and people who are doing exploratory UAT sessions really like Explorer because it cuts down a lot of time in them creating screenshots and documenting every one of their steps, correct?
So Andres, what is the difference between the desktop and web explorer? The test pad I was able to see by because it will try to show you the expected result once we need to input a pass or fail. But what is the other two explorers, web explorer, and what are those differences?
Yeah, the main difference is Web Explorer is a web-only plugin. So if you're testing on a web application or a browser, you're going to use Web Explorer. If you're testing on a desktop application like SAP or something like that, you'll use Desktop Explorer.
Got it.
They're both the same thing, except one of them is a browser plugin, the other one is an application in your computer. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So Andrew, in this Q test, right? Say for example, I have more than one project, and I can share the test cases within the cross project, right?
Correct.
So there is no anything issue. I can say, for example, you have the test case is showing here. So all these test cases I can reuse in another project. How can I do it? That one.
Correct. So to give you an idea of that, this is my test case repository over here. I have one manual and one automated. I believe all of these test cases are shared. So if I go to a different project, let's say my standalone project. In my standalone project, I have very different tests. If I go to my test design, I can see that I've completely different tests that I've built over here. But that being said, if I go to requirements, let me pick a requirement at random. I can go to add test cases. And in here, I'll see that, actually, I need to go to my test execution. When I'm in a different test, I can always go to my test execution, create a new test run. Let me go in here. And in my test runs, I can go to test cases. And in here, I can see that test case repository folder from my other project. And if I go in here, I see my manual and automated tests. If I click on manual, I'll be able to see all those tests that I created in my Jira project, but I can now access through my standalone project. I can select what tests I want to run, add them. And now I have a new test run with the test that I created in the other project.
So those test cases only in the test execution only can run level, but you cannot pull those test cases, and in the test design or tab, those test cases you cannot link in the requirement. So only that test execution level only it will work. Correct?
Yeah, that is something to keep in mind. To add tests from other projects, you'll have to do it from the test execution tab. As at one point we have to decide where those tests live, right? So in this case, the tests are going to live in the project where they were created, but we can also add it to executions in other projects.
And another thing is in the where researchers I want to see the traceability, like requirements and the test and execution defects in the tool. So in the requirement only I can see the test cases, correct, and the test cases linked there. But if you want to see the test executions and the link to test cases and in the test execution here, right here I can see the here in the test execution level.
Correct. Yeah. Execution is where all of your results are going to live, and you can always trace back from test execution to what tests, what requirements, and from here back into.
Can you show me? Can you show me that one, the forward and backward traceability? How from the defect?
Let me go back to my Jira project. So in this case, I have my manual tests over here. These are all the manual tests that I executed for this run. If I want to know what this is linked to, I can click on one of those tests. And on here, I can see what defects those are linked to, what requirements those are linked to. I can always click back on the requirement, and that'll bring me back to that specific requirement. I can then see what other tests are linked to that requirement, which I could then click on to see them, or I can always go back into Jira for my full traceability back into it. So again, I see over here, this is my user story, which has been copied over here as well. In test execution, we see that user story over here, so associated with it.
And also where we can see the sprint level, particular sprint or project level or release level reporting, Andrews, and the reporting process.
Where can we see the sprints and releases associated with this requirement is the question?
Yes, yeah. Say for example, based on the now your folder structure in the execution, you have the release level, okay, or any particular project level. So where I can see all the reporting.
Sure. So in here, we can see that this specific requirement is associated with release 1 in Jira. Of course, those releases also come over here. So if I see release 1 and select that release 1, scroll to the bottom, I can see the requirements. In this case, enter vehicle data. That was that requirement where we were. If I click on it, it brings me back to this requirement as well. Did that answer your question?
No, reporting. Say how can I see the particular release, how many test cases you executed, how many test cases failed, how many defects are you logged, how many linked, those reporting dashboard.
So for reporting, we'll go into Insights in this case. Insights is our full reporting module. And in Insights, one of the easiest ways to be able to sort through your data is leveraging the built-in filters. So I can select a specific project or multiple projects. I can see all the projects basically exist in my Qtest instance here. I can select a test cycle. So in this case, for example, I could pick this one here. I can select a module. And let me just pick my Jira project so it makes a little bit more sense. All right, this one will make more sense. So in here, I could pick, for example, my automation and any of the modules. And this all depends on how I'm organizing my project, right? So if I go back into my project, I can see that in my test execution tab, I'm organizing by these modules: automation, launch, polls, CICD, Kafka, neoload. And here I see all those modules as well. If I wanted a manual module, for example, I would just have to create one of these folders, name it manual, and put in my manual suites into it, so that when I'm in Insights, I could select, for example, only manual or only automation, for example. We can also do it by release. So if we want to see only the testing that has happened associated with release 1 or 4, and again, these are all the releases that I've created in Jira, right? Already defined in here since we brought them into Qtest. So I always tell people, if you're able to create a folder structure that allows you to be able to go as wide or as granular in the data that you need, we can make it very easy over here. And now these are just the pre-built dashboards. So over here, we have 3 that are pre-built: the quality, coverage, and velocity. And generally, these are organized depending on the user that wants to interact with them. So quality, we find, is great for testers to be able to see the everyday results of what is happening. Coverage, we usually find it quite good for project managers or managers in general that want to have a holistic view into what's the state of the process, what requirements need my most attention, where should I allocate my resources, as well as a detailed view of each requirement, plus the test cases associated with that requirement, and whether they pass, fail, dates, who executed them, or the creator, what type, etc. And we have velocity, which I think is quite good for upper management or the C-suite, being able to see that velocity. Are we going to be able to meet those deadlines? What is the volume that we're achieving, etc. You'll be able to see that here. And then, of course, you can build your own custom dashboards as you see fit. In here, we'll be able to drag and drop visualizations. We can rename, we can resize, etc. We have about 60 pre-built grabs for you that you can utilize right out of the box. They're all categorized depending on their purpose. If there's something in there that you really don't find, you also have the ability to explore the data yourself and create your own custom visualizations. And again, with the dashboards, you'll be able to filter through them quite easily. And once you're ready, let's say, hey, I only want to send that report for automation to my manager. Once you filtered and you're ready to go, we can go to shareable URL, very easy, copy this URL, and then either send it to them. We can also do an embed script that you could put on something like your Confluence page, so it's always available for people to see. But I think the best part about this is the URL does not consume a license. To create the dashboard, you do need a license, but to share it, you don't. And all this data is in real time, right? So your executive or your manager or whoever you're reporting to will be able to access this dashboard, see all this data in real time, and always have that visibility that you need.
Hey, Andres, I've got to jump on another call. The Signet team, is this a helpful session for you? Do we need to?
Yes, sir. Yes, Joe. So this is helpful, and
I think we need to connect. We need to have one more session in order to have the integration with the workshop automation tool, which was not yet started. So that is one of the another focus point which we need to look into in order to have this.
Okay, so another 1 hour session.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and during that hour, I really would like to be able to cover Pulse, since we had a session on launch and how we could use it for workshop. I really want to introduce Pulse, and I also want to introduce or Jenkins plugin, which we didn't have a chance today, which could be one of the easiest ways to set up that integration.
Okay, great.
Andrews, currently we do have our DevOps pipeline, which is already being set up with the